So count me in.
3, 2, 1.
Yes, another episode of the Fat Cats Rugby podcast. My producer just clapped us in. I think I've never understood the importance of that Hollywood clapper until today. I didn't know why, but he just banged the manual clap. But here, as always, at the Gardens, Nigeria, a fine place near the Buildnet Apartments opposite Bulabira Road in Nigeria, where you can catch up on some nice vibes on a particular day where necessary. Obviously, here continuing with the rugby discussions, the podcasts here and there. But majorly, our focus today is going to be on part 2 on what we have called the Scrum-ble for power in a club that is known for this sound, powered by Black. And with me here today is, I will say the name, but you will give me the title. That's the only way I don't want to get this thing wrong today. So I'm here with Joshua Wakabi, who is the
Chairman Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Okay, Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club. So, Joshua, obviously, this is part 2. When we're offset, you asked me why the title, Jinja Hippos Scrum-ble for power.
Yeah, because actually you're short of calling it the Scrum and Partition of...
The Scrum-ble partition of the Jinja Hippos. Not yet. We hope we don't get to that level.
Sure.
But obviously, we want to get an understanding of what's transpiring down there after the Jinja Bridge. But how are you? And tell us, what were your fond memories of this rugby season with the Hippos?
Oh, I'm feeling great. Personally, it's not been time off for me. Rugby, I think, is a lifetime addiction.
Okay.
So basically, maybe catching a couple of rugby in other parts of the world a bit, but also in terms of the reflection in this last season. I think it was a game against Heathens, and just before and after the game, what the players said, Chairman, don't worry. Heathens are married to us. We'll beat them any single day, and that's what happened. So that's a good memory, but also the other one was the game against Cobs at Legends, and of course the final against the Pirates. So those are really, really fond memories for me. And in my heart of hearts, it's a stepping stone for the rest of the future of Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Okay. I noticed the difference in titles, particularly as we addressed. The other week was Hippos Rugby Club, and then this one is Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club. But we are talking about the same team that we see weekend out playing for the title.
And
Yes.
which team is that?
Maybe we'll get the answer to that. And
Sure.
take me up. Let's go back to that final. Obviously, you were under a lot of pressure at the beginning, and then you turned the ante and started blowing Pirates away, and then subsequently we saw what happened. But what were your takeaways from that final?
Yeah, and I think it goes a little way before that final. Remember what first Pirates before?
Yes.
And they beat us. But the weekend before that, we had played at Chitanti against resilient Eagles.
Yes.
And man, the pitch.
Yeah, the pitch.
Kind of nearly half our team was injured before that Pirates game. So everyone wondered, that's a whitewash.
Yeah.
It was playing so well, and then you come up against Pirates and they're blowing you out of the water. And then we get to the final, the boys prepared. And one of the most important things we learned as a club is the amount of preparation.
Yeah.
Just before that, the boys went into camp for 3-4 days, preparing for that game. They had their mental state straightened, and their bodies were in top-notch condition.
Yeah.
And then they come into the final, and the kind of rugby they played, awesome. And for me, I don't take anything away from them. They gave it their all, and all the boys were disappointed by the result because they knew this was their season. And I'd mentioned it before. If at all we don't take it this year, we're taking it next season.
Yeah, and obviously looking at, I think we focused on the glitz and glamour of Pirates winning that particular title, but for those of you who are in the leadership of the club per se, what do you tell players in moments like this where you could clearly see they had the game, they had everything going right until that extra time came into play?
The players have matured, and behind the scenes, before the game, there is a lot of pep talk. The coach does his work, the technical director does his work. For me as chairman, I'm only there to ensure that everything else is available. The money is available, the food is available, and everything else. But in that moment, when you've lost against Pirates, the takeaway this year was that the boys matured. Remember 1-2 seasons ago?
Yes.
The boys would be all in tears.
Yeah.
Did you see any tears this year around? No. That tells you a mental shift. And we have these team bonding activities after the games. And the players openly talk about what went wrong, what they could do better. And I think for me, that is a good place for them. So I don't need to tell them anything. The coach doesn't need to tell them anything. They have to rest until the next training session.
Okay. Obviously, with the season long done and dusted, the next warm-up sessions here for the Rugby Africa Cup, and this is our segment on the Rugby Africa Cup, where Uganda will be hosting the other 7 nations at Nambole in what is a Rugby World Cup qualifier. And we hope to hear sounds like this powered by Black, our audio partner. We call this a Black audio session. Yeah, having that sound there obviously brings back memories of supporting the national team and watching them play, victory, loss, draw even, and how they have come from very, very far. What are your fond memories of last year's particular tournament, and what do you think can be done for Uganda this year to win it?
I watched all of Uganda's games last year, and personally, I think the preparations weren't as good as this time round.
Yeah.
And that first game, my, and everyone was just holding their hands. But this time around, I've seen a very systematic approach to how the technical team wants the team to play, in terms of how they've selected the players, in terms of the games they've played, but also all round. I think the last 8 or so years, for me, I've watched rugby maybe for the last 18 years. This team is close to the best team we've ever had as a country, in terms of talent, in terms of preparation, in terms of resources and all that. So when I reflect on what happened last year, I think we're in a better place this time round.
Yeah, and obviously going into this one, we always root for Team Uganda as we host the other nations coming into Nambole to grace day 1, which is 8th July, Tuesday. Don't miss out on that. The Rugby Africa Cup, which will also double as a World Cup qualifier, coming to our backyard here, just a few meters away from, not even a meters, but maybe a kilometer or 2. Call it 5 if you want to walk that distance from here. And we expect lots of you to come and join us. So do look out for ticket giveaways on Fat Cats podcast platforms, as well as other platforms. Get your tickets as soon as you can, and get those excuses ready. We have to support the boys. And there's a particular thing I want to bring to your attention. For those of you who are watching, this is anniversary week and we all have to celebrate. So Fat Cats making 3 years this week, and we are celebrating our anniversary. And maybe as I did that in Scrum-ble for Power Part 1, so in Part 2 it's only fair we do the same. What are your key takeaways from Fat Cats podcast, and what are your favorite captured moments from your perspective as a rugby fan?
I think when you interviewed some of the legends, including Chimono, when I was growing up, Chimono was my favorite player.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I love that, but also some of the interviews with the officials have been insightful. And of course, it's been a good platform to showcase what Uganda Rugby is all about. Also speaking to players, speaking to the union and actual individual people that make up the clubs to understand what exactly makes rugby in the country.
Yeah.
I think it's really been huge. And the spaces, of course, I've followed majority of them. Maybe I've been on 80 or 70% of them over the last season, reviewing the games. For me, that has been helpful. I know coaches that have been smart enough have been on those spaces, and I think that things that have picked up, and hopefully they've borrowed a leaf or two in terms of the reviews, the metrics that are discussed and all that. So yeah, for me, this one of the best things that has happened to Uganda Rugby over the last 3 or so years.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think we'll take the kind words in good stead, and hopefully we'll come back here on another day. I don't know if our podcast will still be here or will be in Mars, the way things are traveling.
Please be here.
We'll very much be happy to continue doing this, and I think this just gives us encouragement to continue doing as much as we can to tell our rugby story. But obviously you mentioned you've been in rugby for quite some time, 18 years. What has your journey in rugby been like? Where did you ever play? Did you play the game? Did you try high school? Everyone talks about high school, tag rugby. What's your story?
Yeah, I've not played rugby.
Yes.
At all, except for touch rugby or beach rugby.
Yes.
But I went to a rugby playing school.
Okay.
That's Kiryowa College Boutique in Jinja.
Yeah.
And that, for me, it was quite easy to shift to mainstream rugby.
Yes.
And my journey is quite a humble one, if I could say.
Yeah.
I remember, I think 3 or so spaces ago, you talked about the Nile Rugby club.
Yeah.
You experienced playing against the Kenyans.
Yes, we played Kenyans.
And the Tongans in Jinja.
It was very tight.
And legends.
Yes.
So I was part of that setup in a way. I was humble enough, being fresh out of university, also helping the team.
Yeah.
Doing the smallest things you could notice.
Yes.
At dam waters, including serving people beer.
Oh, really? Okay.
Helping clean up, wash the kids.
Yeah.
Helping the preparations for the games, travel with the coaches and the team managers. For me, that's where I came from. And having grown up in Jinja, and specifically Damoters being quite close to my heart, I believe Jinja is the cradle of rugby in a way.
Okay.
Yes, because I mean, Idi Amin playing at Damoters at Nile in those years. You look at some of, the people we look up to in the current setup of Uganda Rugby, having their roots in Jinja in one way or another, but also in terms of talent, seeing what currently Jinja Hippos is doing. So, yeah, and also the schools doing their best, and I think in a few years from today, they'll be ruling because the appetite for the game is there, the setup is there, and of course there is all this yearning to play the game. So yes.
Okay, you very much participated in Nile. I think I still have a few pictures. I think we'll archive those and
You should.
and tell the story.
You should.
I
I'll
think
also send you some.
Yeah, send us some as well. Very fond memories of that particular game against Nile. But considering you were part of Nile at the time, I do believe you might be a bit familiar with their exit from the rugby
Yes.
scene. So tell us what that story was.
So, of course, rugby is an expensive sport.
Yes.
It requires a lot of development and a lot of investment. So Nile at the time, I think remember the days of Tag Rugby Trust.
Yes.
And actually that also forms part of the foundation for Jinja Hippos, because the boys that were playing under Tag Rugby Trust and Bob, Wali, under Dot, Nekesa, Aboy, Singwid, and all those people who were part of that kind of setup really helped. So Nile tapped into that, but it wasn't yet time for those boys to really step up.
Yes.
So, and rightly, I understand why we had Kenyans and Tongans play. I mean, Kenya is quite close to Jinja. By then maybe an hour and a half. You playing in Jinja, but then there was a lot of support coming in from the then MD of Nile. So that was Nick Jenkinson. So really, he helped revamp the club premises. And if you played at Damot at the time, everything was Nile special, yellow, gold, black, and Nile special branding all over the place. And that really helped the team to play for a couple of seasons. And then his exit from the Bro really didn't do well to the team. I think the team that was managing Nile's rugby club at the time didn't think about how we can sustain the club beyond the support.
Yes.
So in a way, like we say, for it's an individual person's team, usually there will be a couple of challenges. But also there are things I might talk about in this podcast that really led to the downfall of Nile.
Yes.
But they set the foundation for revival of rugby in Jinja.
Yeah.
When you look at Walukwa, for example, Duncan, and what the amazing job he has done there. Duncan played for Nile.
Yes.
I know you remember. And him going to Walukuba, now you see what's happening in Kakira as well. The other clubs that are sprouting, Nile Rapids, Damota's doing a wonderful job as well. So, and we believe there'll be more clubs to form. At least, I mean, they know of, people who are trying to develop rugby in different parts of Busoga region. So, yes.
Yeah, obviously, I'm going to check my photos of the old days and see if Duncan appears there. If he was still in Nile at the time. So we're very much be interested in getting that that done. But obviously, with the transition of Nile, there lives a gap.
Yes,
there lives a gap, and Manzi came here last week, as you're very much aware, is a continuation of part one, and gave us a history of Hippos Rugby Club and how it started. And is there something in respect to that history that you may need to add, or we take that as the gospel truth?
Not exactly, but I mean, this savior mentality in rugby and in Uganda generally should end. If you notice how Manzi came to Jinja, and I mean, I watched the whole of the last podcast.
Yes.
Mentioning how rugby had died and all that. Rugby was still there.
Yes.
Boys were still playing. I can even name players who currently either coaches or management of other clubs.
Please do.
Byron Okuba?
Yes, Byron Okuba, S&C of Pirates, yes.
He used to be a hooker for Nile as well.
I think I'll check the photos.
Please
we have like 2 or 3 photos of that game only. Yes.
We have players, former players for Nile who were playing for Mongas. I think also one of their hookers. what's his name, Waiswa, or someone, who left Nile and went to Mongas.
Yeah.
We have players who have retired. What's his name? Oskol Brian, who is in Jinja. He played as a winger. We have another guy called Brian Okuba as well, who played as a flanker. Is there in Jinja? I mean, lots of people.
Yeah.
And if it remains in terms of who was managing rugby at the time in Jinja, Dr. Gilbert, you know him. You know Mike Kabaliwano. Maybe Edward Ocheng was there. Robert Boali was there at the time. So all these are people that I think should get their flowers. And when I talk about savior mentality and someone says maybe they found that rugby in Jinja died, I think that's inaccurate.
Okay.
So, like I mentioned, after Nile, there's a transition.
Yes.
Rugby was still being played, but not at the highest level. So people were still managing what was left of Nile.
Yeah.
And then, for me, I was there when Manzi was coming to Jinja. Manzi was into branding and marketing.
Yes.
If you played at Damoters, the farthest goalposts, do you remember those, a billboard?
I can't recall. I will not lie, I can't recall.
Look for those pictures.
Yes.
So Manzi came to Jinja as a businessman who was doing branding for various brands.
Yeah.
So he asked the team that was managing Damoters at the time, can I put a billboard up? He wanted to do something similar to what was Chadonda with that Chadonda at the time.
Yes.
So the guy said, it's okay, you can pay us a little money and all that. So, of course, he put up the billboard, was there, and then, of course, as a businessman, he saw an opportunity and went behind the backs of the people who were managing the facility and the club at the time. Went to Jinja Club, paid up money and said, I want to run this place as a business.
That's Damoters.
At Damoters.
Yeah.
So there was nothing like rugby. But then again, Manzi has played rugby with different clubs. So maybe saw that as an opportunity to, try to, bring the boys together again and let them play. I remember in the last podcast he mentioned Maxwell Ebonga and John Echeru and all that. There was a whole group of boys were there. The Medima Pesas, I think I mentioned him, and all those. I think there were like 7 or 8 boys.
Yes.
Some of them, the Dennis Etoiles, were currently. I mean, those boys grew up when I was there at Damoters. I saw them train. I saw them grow up to the men that they are today. So, some, of course, registered Hippos Rugby Club. And, of course, the history, I in terms of how the name Hippos came up, I can't contradict that. Because there was a politician who, because of the Hippos in Jinja, and remember, Damoters is by the banks of River Nile. So Hippos used to come, I think, to that place.
Yeah.
So he thought, okay, if you can have a club which is called Hippos, good. We also hope to put up a monument for Hippos.
Yes.
As you enter Jinja and things like that. So that was the history around that. So that happened until around 2016, 17.
Yeah.
So after that, and had rightly mentioned, that was the only one supporting the team, which team was comprised of fewer than 15 players.
Yeah.
So I believe that was discouraging and disheartening for him. So he left. Now the people who he left behind formed what we now call Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Okay.
So 18 people came together, wrote a constitution, submitted it to the lawyers. That was Bakurama and Company Advocates in Jinja. They registered the constitution. And by then the chairman was Ojanji.
Ojanji, yes.
Yes.
The chairman of Hippos Rugby
of Jinja
Club.
Hippos.
Of Jinja Hippos Rugby Club, okay.
Yes. So he was part of those founding 18 members.
Do you remember the other 17? You could just mention a
Yeah.
few that you
So
recall.
number 1 was Gilbert Baenda. Number 2
Yeah.
was Michael Abaliwano. There was Wako David. There was Innocent Ojanji. There was Saidi of Kakira now.
Yeah.
I think there was Issa, who is also now in Kakira. There were a couple of other people, but most of them were players.
Most of them were
Were
players.
players.
That was in 2016.
In 2018.
18, okay.
18. So they wrote this constitution. So yeah, they used the same constitution to open a bank account
Okay.
and kind of move the club ahead. So that happened. They continued running the club. Said now took stewardship of the club. If you remember, he was coach.
Yes, I
he was
do recall
everything.
Saidi was coach.
Was
yes.
everything for that club. And
Yes.
then along the way, I think it was around 2019, other people joined,
Yes.
right? But not officially like they were becoming members or anything, but people were interested in the game, people who understood the game and basically attracted to supporting the team.
Yeah.
So they came in. And then in December 2020, they had their first AGM. And
From the time of 2013 up to
from after 2018 now.
Yes.
Now they have a new constitution in place,
yes.
right? The 2018 constitution, which was now Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club,
Yes.
right? And then they have their first AGM in 2020.
Yes.
Yes, in
2020,
2020, yes. So in 2020, now they have an ExCom. Innocent comes back as chairman, and they vote Tim Groover, they vote Mwijuka, William, they vote, I think, Alexis, and a couple of other people. So I think there are like 7 on
Yeah.
the committee. So that is it. But then problems came.
Where did these problems start
Now.
from? But maybe just before you go to the problems,
Yes.
the Constitution 2018.
Yes.
What was the governing structure? I've looked at the Hippos Constitution of 2013,
Yeah.
and that had an ExCom managing affairs, but also had a trustee who was permanently appointed as Manzi.
Yeah.
So, what were the key features of this 2018 Constitution that people out there should know?
So the first feature of that constitution was the change in name.
Okay.
And the name that was registered was Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Okay.
And then the other contrast with the 2013 constitution was that in 2018, there was no trustee, there was no owner, there was no founder. So it was individuals or members who were coming together. However, there's, I think, clause 6, which says the first 6 members on the membership form on the constitution, those will be permanent members
Okay.
of Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Okay.
And Manzi was not part of those members.
Okay.
So that constitution is there. It's for everyone to see. And the other thing was basically straightening some of the things that were, problems with membership. You're paying membership, but then you don't have a decision around what kind of things happen within the club. You're paying membership, but then someone can hire and fire. And I think that's where where there's a bloodline with some of the current struggles. But again, it was a much more cleaner constitution. Now, in 2021, remember by then it was Nile Special Stout,
Now Stout, yes.
which was sponsoring the league. So I think for 2 or 3 seasons, I don't remember correctly. But then there was an incentivization project by URIU.
Yes.
What happened was that they required each club to submit updated legal documents, financial clean audits, things like sustainability plans,
Yes.
things like technical plans, and all that.
Yes.
right?
Mm.
So the club, of course, shared those documents with Union.
That is Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Yes, Jinja Hippos Rugby
Jinja
Football
Hippos
Club. I
Rugby
think
Football
maybe I
Club.
can read
Yeah, please do.
that email for you. I won't mention from whom it was.
And to whom it was. Oh,
Yeah.
it was the Union.
Yeah, it was to the Union.
Yes.
Um,
Maybe as you get that, do note we are discussing ginger matters, so it's only fair we discuss it over a Nile special here at the Gardens, Nigeria, the home of the fourth floor and the East African Meat Carnival. If you did see some people here on last Saturday, carrying a few chairs because a song, particularly Frontline, was playing. That just goes to show you the vibe around here. Catch up with East African music, some fresh meats. But also, if you come in during the weekday on Tuesday, you can engage in the quiz and karaoke, sing for your people as they support you on a weekday. On Wednesday, you can catch a vibe with the reggae crew here. Lots of artifacts being sold, as well as jewelry and personal accessories as you listen to some reggae music. Thursday is the rock night. Listen to some rock music by Phil Kiryowa, as well as indulge in the Friday Neon Lights hosted by Sima and Rodende here at the Gardens, Nigeria. So, packed club, as well as Formula One. If you're a Formula One fan, you would very much want to interest yourself. Having watched the Austria Grand Prix, we have I think, is it Silverstone coming up? Yeah, so if it's Silverstone coming up, Lewis Hamilton homecoming, do give that a watch. Yes, but back to you, Joshua.
So yes, so I found an email
Yes.
written on Friday the 6th August 2021. So it said, hello, we hope you are keeping safe.
Yes.
Reference is made to the below email sent at the start of the 2021 Nile Special Stout Rugby Premier League. Would like to now follow up on the progress or status of this so we can conclude the process and pay out the necessary dues to the clubs immediately. So it went on. So
That's the email from the Union.
From the Union.
Okay.
So please note, like we stated, one must show evidence of compliance of year one targets to qualify for year two targets.
Yes.
So this was part of the incentivization
All
program.
Yes.
So blah blah, they set a deadline. But what was required was a sponsor. So basically, every club by then was required to have some form of income coming in from a sponsor. Then two, what they called Empower at the time.
Yeah.
So year one was 2019, 2020. So they wanted to provide latest constitution, a list of current ExCom with terms and evidence or minutes of the 2020 AGM, and then evidence of audited books of accounts for 2020, and then evidence of at least one ExCom meeting per quarter in 2020.
Okay.
That was covering 2019, 2020. Then in 2021,
Yes.
the year two Empower updates they wanted was evidence of ownership of intellectual property rights to the name of the club or team. So blah blah, they set a deadline. But what was required was a sponsor. So basically, every club by then was required to have some form of income coming in from a sponsor. Then two, what they called Empower at the time.
Yeah.
So year one was 2019, 2020. So they wanted to provide latest constitution, a list of current ExCom with terms and evidence or minutes of the 2020 AGM, and then evidence of audited books of accounts for 2020, and then evidence of at least one ExCom meeting per quarter in 2020.
Okay.
That was covering 2019, 2020. Then in 2021,
Yes.
the year two Empower updates they wanted was evidence of ownership of intellectual property rights to the name of the club or team. That is really important. Show that the club has compliance appropriate to the city or town council and NEMA when Jinja,
Yeah.
the Southern Division, to be particular. And then evidence that the club has disciplinary committee that sits when required. Then the third element, which was C, was strengthen a commercial, basically every club needed to have a commercial member on their ExCom. someone to really help with
Someone
that
who
aspect.
is a commercial,
person. And then they grow the technical. So for year one, they needed a level 2 coach, was certified, and then the club to have the second side playing the regional league.
Okay.
And then the third was a strength and conditioning coach on
Alright.
its coaching panel as a club.
Yes.
Then for year two, evidence of support to community rugby or schools program. And then evidence club has at least one strength and conditioning session per player per week.
Okay.
Now, in response, Jinja Hippos Rugby Club
Okay.
attached all the documents to
In
the
respect
union
to this
in respect to
request.
that request.
Yeah.
So in terms of the sponsor, of course, union mentioned that would use the match day branding and all that, because by then the sponsor was Nile Special Stout.
Yeah.
So that covered for all clubs. Then for Empower, in terms of the latest constitution, we provided the 2018 constitution, right? And a list of the EXCOM members. Based on that, those documents available. And then minutes of the 2020 AGM, which was held on the 8th of January of 2021.
2021, okay.
Right? And then, of course, there was a representative from URU in that meeting.
Okay.
And then we also attached our financial reports and profits and loss accounts
Okay.
for that period. Then for the EXCOM meeting minutes, of course, per quarter, we sent for 2 quarters, quarter 1 and quarter 4. I mean, those are the days of COVID. But yeah. Then for year 2, evidence of ownership, we submitted a Jinja Hippos memorandum and articles of association, which provide evidence of IP of name.
Okay.
And
So
that
you had
was
the IP
Jinja,
for that.
Yes. And that was Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club. Then in terms of compliance with the city or town council and name authorities, we attached a Jinja Hippos CBO registration certificate,
Yes.
which was there. So outside the constitution, we had to register the club
Yeah.
with this Jinja City Southern Division. Then disciplinary committee, strength and commercial, the technical, by then the late Sogi was our coach.
Yeah.
So all these things, evidence of community and, support to the schools program. We had schools we're supporting. We attached a list, who was in charge of its school, and all these things. So someone says you're not recognized by the union.
Yes.
But this was an email, and if I could show you who it was sent to,
Yeah.
and who was in copy or who sent that email, you'd be amazed. Because someone can say Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club is not recognized by either the Eastern Uganda Rugby Association or Uganda Rugby Union. I mean, for the last 7 or 8 seasons, RAU has been remitting subsidies. Is it to Hippos or to Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club?
So that bank, I know we're going to get into it later
Yes.
on, but so are you saying that bank account you opened as a result of being a CBO was the account to which funds were remitted?
Yes. Now, there is something to that which, we may not easily discuss here because it involves individuals and there's a process, a
Yes.
disciplinary process which was undertaken to clear the house.
Yeah.
And then that's when Manzi returns as chairman now.
So after that process of from a Hippos Rugby Club perspective, cleaning house is when he came back. That was
he came back after the house had been cleaned.
That was
right?
from a Hippos Rugby Club perspective.
Yes.
Okay.
So he basically returned in around 2019, 2020.
Yes.
Right? And by 2020, that's when a couple of issues happened. And then he returned as chairman. Remember, there was another chairman and another individual that were in charge of running club affairs on top of other EXCOM members. But your chairman, you signatory to the club accounts, and maybe someone else on the committee is signatory. So a couple of things happened.
Yeah.
So there was a disciplinary process, and then people were let go. Man's returned now as chairman. And then we played from that time until the season as Jinja Hippos. But then you ask a very important question
Yes.
around constitutions. Now, we had an AGM in November last year. But just before that AGM, we asked, as interested parties of Jinja,
Yes.
Hippos Rugby Club, can you pay membership fees of 100,000? Come. Being a member gives you rights to vote, to be voted,
Yeah.
that's participated in club decision making. We paid 55 of us.
Yeah.
That's 5.5 million
Yes.
in November the 9th, before that. So, and then of course the players were part of the membership group and all that. So we sat into the AGM. One astonishing memory of that AGM was, of course, I was voted chairperson
Yeah.
and unopposed.
Mm.
So what happened in that AGM? Of course, we had Eric Butime and we had Dave Spencer, who is from the Eastern Rugby Association, overseeing the AGM
Yeah.
and this process of voting, who is getting which votes for which position and all that. One thing really stole the show in terms of Manzi sneaking in a constitution at that
so
AGM.
at that particular AGM, the
Yes,
constitution was snacking.
which caught a lot of people unaware. It's not part of the agenda. It's not part of anything. But then people stopped him in terms of the people who knew. For us, we didn't know. The people who knew what was going on said, no, we cannot now start into voting on a constitution.
Also,
or
the
amendments.
agenda items was basically an election. Only.
Yes, it was an update in terms of, how far the club has come
For
in the
Hippos-
last season.
for Hippos
For
Rugby
Jinja
Club.
Hippos.
For Jinja Hippos or Hippos
For
Rugby
Jinja
Club?
Hippos, everything.
So Manzi came for a meeting of that
Yes,
nature.
but
yes.
remember I told you that in around 2019,
Yes, he
2020,
came back.
he came back.
Yeah.
And then he became chairman after 2 members had been expelled from
Yes.
Mexico.
Okay.
So he comes back as chairman of Jinja Hippos Rugby
Yes.
Football Club with now the rest of the committee. Now that committee runs activities until last year.
Yeah.
Okay? And then we hold an AGM, like I mentioned,
Last year in November. Yes.
And then this whole constitutional issue comes up. And people who know say you cannot bring a constitution up for voting
When the
when
notice
no
is
one,
totally different.
people have just paid membership,
Yeah.
that they've not had time to internalize what the constitution is all about and all that.
Yeah.
So that flops. Now we get
That flops and you're elected as
Yes.
chairperson.
Yes.
But now this is where I want to come in. Now the question is how the two link up. That is Hippos Rugby Club and Jinja Hippos. Your claim at that particular moment was that it was a meeting where Hippos Rugby Club, Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club
yes,
was electing new leadership.
yes,
Manzi said on that particular meeting where he handed over to you, it was Hippos Rugby Club. So my question is, did you ever have membership prior? No. Did Manzi ever have membership in Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club? Perhaps this is something I should have asked him, but since you're the custodian of the records,
I've told you about
yes.
how the membership of Jinja Hippos Rugby Football
Yes.
Club came up.
Yes.
So
6
we paid-
permanent members, 18 founders.
Okay,
Yes.
that was from 2018 now.
2018, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Some of those individuals, maybe 90% of
Yes.
them, are still part of Jinja Hippos.
Yes.
But then, ahead of the AGM, we asked if more members need to do what? To join,
Yes.
pay membership, join, come, speak up,
Yeah.
participate in the decision-making process, but also you can stand for an elective position
Okay.
or you can second someone. So that is it. So everything we did between 2018 and now was Jinja Hippos,
Okay.
right? And of course, someone can say we did it as Hippos, but then just if you to rewind a little bit and ask yourself, the 2018 constitution was there. We sent it to the union. It was ratified and added to, to whatever legal documents Jinja Hippos had with the union.
So you're saying that the union first received the 2013 constitution, as per what Manzi said.
Yes.
Then subsequently in 2018, they also received yours.
Yes.
So there is a likelihood that confusion arose somewhere, because Manzi claims he handed over to you. So he assumes...
He handed over to me as former chairman of Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
So so the assumption here, I'm trying to get it clear for our listeners,
yes,
is that where, I don't know how to, which analogy can I use to explain it? It is like these, how do I do it? Because I am seeing where the confusion starts.
Good.
I'm seeing where the confusion starts.
Good.
And it kind of now will lead us to our discussion subsequently. The problem, I think, okay, I see what you're saying. So let me say it in, let me say it in no clear words.
Good.
Any further clearer. You are saying the actual problem here was the union.
It could be. I don't want to point, but we'll get to that. We go to that point.
Where I am going to say so is from what you're saying is the union, because you were acting under the assumption that your constitution had been approved by the union. Do you have this? You'll share with me those documents.
Yes.
And then
and this email is there.
Yeah. So the assumption is at that
Friday
time
6th, yes,
that the union very much so assumed that, or understood, not assumed, but understood at the time that Hippos Rugby Club had now somewhat or whatever transitioned into Hippos Rugby Football Club. Jinja Hippos, yes. Okay, now I kind of see where the confusion came from. Okay, so now, obviously, back to that particular part now of the handover. Let's start with the handover, November 2024. Yeah.
So, of course, we're given instruments of power. I start my role as chairman.
No, who was on your executive?
On my executive, my vice is called Joab Tamiti. There is a treasurer called Kenneth Biamukama.
Yes.
There is a secretary called Billy Waiswa.
Okay.
There is a commercial head called Joseph Etelu.
Okay.
There is a player representative for the ladies, Tina Akelo. Then formerly Andrew Diamba's captain.
That's what I was waiting for.
Was captain.
Yes.
But then David Wako was nominated by the players to represent them. And then we had Mr. Annoying.
Yes.
Aziz Baglan as well.
Yes.
We also had the technical director role in here, who is Tim Grover.
Tim Grover, yes.
And largely, that's a committee of roughly 9 people. The Letsogi, even up to today, he's, I think, in the hearts of Jinja Hippos.
Yes.
Reason being, he brought that winning mentality.
Yes.
Everyone who has either played with the Letsogi or who has been coached by him understands how demanding it is. He expects perfection, not only during the game, but even during training.
Yeah.
So Coach Sogi historically came in when really Jinja Hippos was almost getting relegated, I think you remember.
Yes, I do recall that, yes.
So he comes in, he has a discussion with the ExCom team at the time. They say, this is a good club. I can help you.
Yeah.
So they agree on what needs to get done. He starts coaching the boys. Out of nowhere, there is a huge improvement.
Yeah.
Having very young players, but then they were playing at the time, you remember. Up to today, I think if you and I think you know now the Sogi Cup.
Yeah, Sogi Cup
between Buffaloes and Jinja Hippos is out of that, because there's that bond and brotherhood. Both teams understand the contribution of that particular individual. So after Sogi, Coach Onem comes in and Coach Kevin. They don't really not matching up, but really there's maybe in terms of the understanding of where we are, and also a couple of other encumbrances. They leave after a very short time. And then the other personality that, of course, talk about, everyone knows Tim Groover. He's been there for the boys. We'll talk about that shortly. But in terms of the technical, and then we have Coach Saidi as well. He comes in, wins the sevens. We had a brilliant team. And remember, that is the same team that had started the tag rugby.
Okay.
So there was a core team of players, of boys that had played together for a long time. So for me, that wasn't a surprise. And then Coach Saidi goes. Then now we have Coach Edmond.
Yes.
Right? But then alongside Coach Edmond is Coach Sean. And like I mentioned off air, he's really, really an important figure in terms of...
Is Sean the big guy?
Yes.
Yes, we went
The
to Jinja in 2023 to watch that Robert Seguya Cup challenge with the Buffaloes. And I could see at halftime he was in the players' faces telling them off. And then I think they managed to win the second half. Yeah. So that's the guy. Yeah.
That is the guy. You'll always see him maybe on the sidelines during the game, just watching the boys play.
Yeah.
And he'll come in at halftime, tell them this is what is happening, this is what is happening, this is how you should be playing, this is how you've been training.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand how important Coach Sean is to this team in terms of the technical progression, in terms of strategically how he wants the team to play. For example, this season, the boys are already training. If you go on X, some of the insights he's posting in terms of diet, in terms of training, in terms of strength and conditioning, it's the person who really understands how exactly that roadmap should be. And then Coach Edmond really coming up to execute that plan on either on pitch or during training and things like that. Really, really important. But then the other figure has been Tim Groover. Really, really important in terms of our support. Jinja Hippos, to be honest with you, and that I had my colleague Manzi mention it here, saying the club ran him dry, right? He was the only one contributing resources and all that. Now, Tim has kind of helped broaden the spectrum of support for the club from an individual level, helping the boys. I mean, our players are almost the same age. Many of them either still in school or just finished school, and things like that. So really helping them with, jobs or paying accommodation or knowing when meals are due, being on the pitch, ensuring that both the boys and the girls are, training, ensuring there is, food available. If a player is injured, recently there was a surgery, right? It cost a lot of money. A lot of people don't even understand. Okay, you've been in rugby circles, but you know how costly a rugby injury can be.
Yeah, even
most
Shimona
especially,
mentioned it,
most especially if it requires surgery.
Yeah.
Whatever Manzi says is the new technical director, OJ, was flown to Nairobi for surgery. Surgery cost 13 million. Rehab cost a ton of money. Pauline has just recently been...
Pauline Bankawiri
has just been to Kosu for surgery. We had support. And thanks to, the Daily Monitor and other partners and the doctor at Kosu. But then there's an additional cost. I mean, medicine, rehab, and all these millions of shillings. And that's the side of rugby a lot of people don't see, that the individuals who really contribute that much to that. Or even, you private some information around national team and resources around that. Or even individual players, right? When they're preparing for some of these things. Team has had that connection, the one-on-one connection. And I wonder why people say we've brainwashed players. We understand, we're paying rent for players, we're paying for their food, we're paying for gym and all this, right? As an ex-com, and then with a huge contribution from team. But then people saying, we've brainwashed players. Those boys have matured to an extent. that they know. I'll use an English adage. They know which side of bread is buttered.
Yes.
And coming up and saying Union provides all the resources for teams to play. You and I know that's not true. Union only gives a subsidy. I didn't sign an NDA with URIU.
Yes.
But this last season, for example, the 15s, Union gave, at least for us, 9.5 million.
Yes.
I can give you a requisition right now for this weekend is 4.5 million.
Okay.
Without anything, just we travel
This weekend
to cover
being the cover Gorilla Sevens, yes.
And then the same weekend, none of this money is catering for allowances. We pay. I mean, the reason we're here is because there's meticulous planning for the club. We pay these boys twice a month an allowance. Okay, there's training, there's allowances for transport, there's food for them. That isn't cheap, by the way. You know, rugby players.
I know, guys can smash
and then mid-month,
food like a problem.
Mid-month, you have to pay them allowance.
Yeah.
Then end month, you have to pay them an allowance alongside the other costs that are incurred within the month. Right? End month comes, you have to pay rent and you have to pay food for players. It's not cheap.
It's not
And
cheap.
someone says Union gives all the money and these guys are not providing accountability and all this. But then, again, with this whole thing of who has been very instrumental, I mean, lots of
Yes.
people. Personally, I came in, I prefer to be as anonymous as possible.
Yeah.
But I'm born and bred in Jinja. Understand what rugby can contribute to a young man's or young woman's future. And I remember last season, I think it was the 7th, with a couple of issues, which I managed to go to every single circuit. So the players sat us down as fans because we used to travel a lot. I know you remember as fans, and they sat us down and said, guys, we need as much support as we can to ensure, because Jinja Hippos was not performing well. Remember the first 3-4 circuits?
Yeah.
Finishing 6th, best maybe 5th.
You're in the midfield of the table.
Yeah. And we're like, we're reigning champions. We can't be playing like... But I mean, just go back and talk about motivation, talk about the preparations, talk about maybe what was happening behind the scenes that a lot of people didn't know. So they said, come on board, help us. We'll play better. We played better the rest of the circuits.
Yeah.
I remember, even I think reaching a semi-final, a final, I don't remember one of the circuits. But then it is important as Jinja Hippos for us who've understood that we're a community club. And this club doesn't belong to an individual. The constitution that we know we signed up to as the current EXON is the 2018 constitution. And that constitution guarantees that Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club is a community club. Players take first priority. Their welfare is important.
Yeah.
And their views are as important as anyone else's views. But first and foremost, we take them as primary. We need to take care of them. These are young boys and men and girls who are doing that. But also the other members who pay their membership.
Yes.
A very important pillar, because these are the fans and well-wishers who paid their 100,000 to be part of a club they thought had a good future, right? Including finishing second in the just concluded Premier League. So how, as chairman, how do I come and sit here and say everything is all right without protecting the interests of these individuals?
But arguments have been made that you unduly influence these players, and the result, I think, where it comes from is the fact that the argument of players being involved in politics, and the impact it has in growing factions even wider at admin level. Now it's even coming to the players themselves, and also seeing the vivid posts on social media where they come out in your defense.
I've spoken about it here twice.
Yes.
These players have come of age.
Yes.
And two, they have voices of their own.
Yeah.
We don't want to pinpoint like how Manzi and Ian mentioned it here.
Yeah.
But these are leaders in their own right. They're captains.
Yeah.
You noticed it. Rujumba is captain, Fahad is captain, Booster is captain, Aziz is captain. They're leaders of the squad. They're the oldest players. They are only doing that because they're protecting the rest of the players, right? I mean, for us as ExCom, we've not gone all out to say the club belongs to us, and people have this wrong assumption that we're fighting to own the club. No single day are we doing that. We're protecting the same individuals who are giving their hearts out, who are playing every single day.
Yeah.
The players. I mean, if there is an assumption that we've brainwashed them, I don't even understand how. The only issue is we're supporting these players in ways I can't even mention here.
Yeah.
Because that is important for rugby.
Yeah.
The best clubs in this country are doing this.
They're doing the
They're
same.
supporting players, and these players are playing their hearts out every single day on the pitch.
Yeah.
You pay for their rent. You know how rugby players are.
I totally
You
understand.
pay for their
that, yeah.
food. You pay for their medical. Right? You pay for their transport. Every single day. Take that from under their feet. How do they feel?
It's a dog world out there.
I can show you
Yes.
messages of how, chairman, I need transport, I need, my rent is due,
Yeah.
and all that. And you have to pay because...
And you have to pay because this is a guy who puts his body on the line for you.
Yeah, we
Might
don't
as
have
well.
a lot of money, but
Yeah.
we're making that small contribution. It may not be for a long time. Maybe my term is 2 or 4 years.
Yes.
That would be my contribution. Let someone else come and take that on. Let someone bear that vision and ensure that Jinja Hippos is playing beyond this whole short-sightedness that we're seeing at the moment. Because this is a community club.
Yeah.
We've seen very prominent people call us. I've had meetings with prominent individuals, members of parliament, ministers, potential sponsors, talking to us about the value of having upcountry rugby and the amount of impact that we're creating in the rugby space. And for me, every time I'm of the view, and I've mentioned it, this is a community club. Whatever happens, it should be a club that has community interests at heart. We have boys from Jinja that are playing, boys, who have been in school, that have been helped in several ways, that are playing.
Yeah.
And look at the national team. We have now players playing.
Yeah.
Right? That's not by mistake. And I mentioned earlier, I'm glad that in one way or another, the team has taken a data-driven approach, in terms of performance during training, in terms of performance during the test games and all that. It's no surprise that we have Fahad Maidon there. He was a monster last season.
Beast.
Talk
man.
about PP, Julius Opio, in the line out.
Actually, he's going to play a pioneer role this year, taking over the reins from Uhuru Charles. Uhuru also took over the reins from Matthias Ocho.
Good.
So, yeah.
Good. So, and that's not by accident.
Yes.
These boys are prepared. That was 6-7 years of work to get Maido where he is now, to get PP where he is right now, right? And then they have a right. These are players who understand what it now takes to play at that high level.
Yeah.
And now you bring all this, this belongs to me, this belongs to me. It can't work. And remember, a few weeks ago, players coming out and writing a memoir, I think it didn't come to the light of day.
No, we actually have that. It's one of the segments I want to discuss with you as well.
There was another one which was going to much higher levels.
The one to the union. I think I did see it.
There was another.
There was
which
another.
followed. Yes. Recently. We just said, guys,
Yes,
first
no
hold
need
fire.
No need to.
Yeah, let's
okay.
take this slow and let's see what happens.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, they understand rugby has grown tremendously in this country.
Yeah.
And you don't need specific individuals to come and play savior and say this belongs to me or that belongs to me. Maybe in some circles, other clubs belong to other people. But for us, we've taken the community-driven model for Jinja. And for me, that's what I want. For me, the principles that I stood for when I was being elected as chairman, I still stick to those. The entire committee still sticks to those. And there's no single day when we'll be divided. And then we're pointing fingers to an individual. I know in the last podcast, there was, he did this, he changed the email, he changed the bank accounts. But he claimed he had been chairman since 2013. And he said there was, a Hippos Foundation of sorts. But I'm like, less than 1 month into our office, you came up with a new constitution because you had failed to kind of table the other constitution during the AGM in November. So now you bring a constitution of Dam Waters Rugby Football Club. Who in this world would want a constitution? We've paid membership. There's a new EXCOM, and then you're just putting this on the table, and you signed it with someone or a few individuals and had the lawyer's stamp, and you're saying now this is the new constitution of Jinja Hippos Rugby Football
Before we
Club.
get to Jinja Hippos, Dam Waters Rugby Club, you talked about savior mentality in rugby.
Yes.
And obviously in the last podcast, we had a very detailed discussion about Tim Grover. I usually don't like rugby digressing into discussions of personalities, but we can't avoid it. So in this particular instance, tell us about Tim, for those who don't know him. Manzi did say a few things that he has done for the players that he very much appreciates, but from your working and interactions with Tim, just paint a picture for those who are watching who he's about, what it's all about.
Good. Actually, Tim never knew me until
really?
I
Okay.
became chairman. So he was skeptical. Who is this guy? And it's good enough. I wasn't known in rugby circles. I'm a fan. I love following rugby events, games, and all that. But over the last 2-3 years before I became chairman, of course, I would go to Jinja every single match day. Go and watch Jinja Hippos play, and was always there. So I'm a passionate person. I'm a person of details as well. And I noticed this very passionate, enthusiastic, energetic, and committed person, right? Before the games, after the games, when was in Jinja, trying to bring all the boys together. What's happening? Do you have boots? What is happening? Do we have kits? Go to the UK, bring back boots and kits for the girls, for the boys. For me, that struck a chord with me. It's not clearly something that you find every single day. I've bought boots and all that for players. But to be honest with you, if someone is doing it for 80, 100 people, that is massive.
Yes.
Right? Whichever way is doing it, it's a good thing. And then coming into the committee, of course, I speak with him almost on a single, every single day. And we talk about these things, what he wants to do, what the direction, but also individual things around, we need money for this. We need money for this. Gym isn't paid. Our allowances are due.
Due, yes.
Chairman, I need money. How far with commercial? Do we have any kind of sponsors in the pipeline? Kind of the person who puts you into the mood to do something for the club, right?
Yeah.
And then when you look at, he has, a simple business. It employs a couple of the boys, right?
How many boys in particular?
I would between 8 to 10.
Okay. All Hippos players?
All are Jinja Hippos players,
okay,
in a way. And then all these other boys that he helps in a way too, whether in terms of paying their rent or their food. And then we have gym requirements. Rugby players are gym freaks. They want to
to carry every
single moment,
every metal in the gym.
They would want to do that. He helps with that, a lot of the time. There was a moment where I think it was away. And then I was speaking to colleagues in the ExCom. I was like, do you guys understand the value of the technical director being the link between the ExCom and the team in terms of, match day? Of course, the biggest issue are resources there, are the players ready? But then making that connection, is the pitch ready? Has it been slashed? Has it been marked? Has the technical area been, prepared?
Demarcated, yes.
I'm liaising with the opposing team. Are they traveling? Have they reached? Are there any problems? Are the officials ready? All those things. That's his job. And then making sure, okay, the coach, this week, this is the team we're going to play.
Yeah.
This is what Coach Sean has said, or this is the preparation we want to do. Making sure is that link between, the actual execution in terms of Coach Edmond and Coach Sean. And then being there for the boys on that day. You need to make sure the food is there. You need to make sure the transport is there for the boys and girls. If someone is injured during training, or someone even has a malaria or a mild cough, they need to go to the hospital. That is a bill. So, and then the kind of connections he has had, because he's a business owner, kind of those other business connections really helping the club in one way.
So was there also an added boost because of his involvement that other partners easily came on board?
Of course, that is true. Okay. That is very true, and that's how business is done. If you have someone who is interested in rugby, or someone you can sell a rugby idea to, and they can come on board, it's one of those things he has done, and that has been immensely important for the club. Just this last 15th season, I told you we got a subsidy of that much money.
Yes.
Within a period of 4 or 5 months, we had spent over 60 million.
Okay.
And people always wonder, there is money elsewhere, there is money coming in. But the amount of resources needed for a club, if you have aspirations really in Uganda, even 60 million is little money. Is little money, considering the amount of investment you need to prepare players, to make sure everyone is every single day performing at their best. So he does all this, and for me, I'm happy he's part of my ExCom, and every single day I'll defend him.
Yeah, obviously back to the challenges. With all that history and background, there will always be challenges when it comes to running the club. I did notice early this year you had challenges with particularly the Nile Rapids not being able to have funding. And the rumor or the word being cut at the time was that your sponsors pulled out because of your management challenges. What is the issue there?
Okay, but at some point, the partners, we don't call them sponsors at the moment, kind of pulled a plug. With all these things going to the media and all that, we lost money. That was towards the quarterfinals. But even before that, let me take you back to the start of the season. So at the start of the season, of course, those communication, there were certain expectations in terms of subsidies that were coming in from URU, but also internally, we have a budget. We know for us to complete a whole year of playing rugby, there's a minimum amount of money we need. But then at the start of the season, we had 3 teams. We had the main Jinja Hippos men's team, we had the reserves team, and then we had Nile Rapids playing. If you've been around rugby for long enough, you know how much that is in terms of resources needed. So, of course, Union was to subsidize costs for all 3 teams. And then, of course, a couple of challenges emerged at the time. And then it was quite challenging. And even we reached a point where we said, the reserves, you're not playing. It's just too expensive for us. But then also at the start of the season, you gave us 2 million shillings for Nile Rapids. And that was it for the entire season, really. So I wonder who would in their mind of minds, would know or even understand that we had to basically manage at the time without sponsorship, without subsidies for the team and all that. So we had to really, really make a call as the ExCom. It's not that we're denying the team resources to play, it's just that the resources were not there. And then we had a review. At some point, I was like, what do we do? And I think, remember, those particular, all the ladies' teams suffered.
Actually, the ladies' rugby
I think you remember the GoFundMes, the kind of fundraising campaigns that were happening on online.
Yeah.
So that was part of everything. It's
It was
not only Nile Rapids.
scheme problem.
Yeah, it's not only Nile Rapids that was suffering. But actually, even remember, Nile Rapids was a beneficiary of one of those campaigns that was being run by Black Pearls. And kudos to Helen and her team.
Yeah.
She reached out, we spoke, we understood the challenges,
Yeah.
and she sent us some money. So the last
kudos to the Black Pearls for running that. Yeah.
So the last game, the subsidy, part of the subsidy that we received was from that fundraising campaign. So as an ExCom, we just stopped on that money, and then the girls played. But this whole thinking that we didn't want the girls to play, it's not something that we even thought about as a team. But it was a general problem. It affected both the men's team and then the girls' team, and that is it.
Okay. And the challenges, obviously financial, but also they trickle into the boardroom. Now we have the boardroom fights here and there, and they subsequently end up at the union and NCS. What was that process like?
So we had 2 meetings. Basically, what our union called them were arbitration meetings.
Yeah.
The expectation was that gentlemen were sitting on a round table and discussing the way forward. Unfortunately, the first meeting, I think, which was in either end of January or sometime in February, I wasn't in the country. But my colleagues, I think 4 of them attended that meeting. The vice chairman, the treasurer, the technical director, and I think someone else. I think a player representative. There are even photos of that. I'll share them with you. So they attended that meeting. The resolution from that meeting was, guys, get some time, sit together, try to find a middle ground for all this. So I returned, I was briefed about what happened, about which resolutions were made in that meeting. And then the first meeting that we had was in Jinja at Dam Waters. So that was the game against Heathens, if I don't remember. So we had
won.
Yeah, we won. So before the game, 6 of us sat. We said, whatever is happening isn't healthy for the club. Can we wait until the end of the season? And that was going to be May. And I think that we had that meeting somewhere in March, end of March. So we said, by mid-May, the season would have ended. Why don't we come back on a round table, bring all stakeholders on board and discuss how we can move forward? Now, that was fine.
Yeah.
That meeting was fine. So I wrote to URIU telling them, we had a meeting, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay, and this is our proposal.
Yeah.
Union kept quiet. Then, a day after, Manzi writes to the union. He says the stakeholders can't wait. They want the issue resolved there and then. And we actually dumbfounded. Then, before even union gave us a date, I had a one-on-one meeting with Manzi at Silver Springs Hotel.
Yes.
We discussed, and he says his problem is an individual. He's not XCOM, is not what. The problem is with Team Grover. And I'm taken aback by that. He says money for this was swindled, money for this was swindled, money
He talked
for
about
this.
Manzi talked about the Hippos Foundation.
Yeah. To which, for me, honestly, I don't know much. I asked the people who were there before about the Hippos Foundation. They gave me paperwork. So basically, for me, what the Hippos Foundation did at the time was the Jinja Hippos players were transitioning. Remember, many of them were in school. They transitioned from primary to secondary. I think as part of tag rugby, there was some money that was, I think, forwarded to help them with school. So it reached a point where those kids were not going to school. So it wasn't much money they received, maybe 6 million or around that. So that money was to go towards helping those kids to start university and or any other technical courses that we're interested in. So those kids, some of them went through that process. I won't speak on behalf of those players, but Aziz is a beneficiary, Dennis Etwao is a beneficiary, and all that. Jonan was a beneficiary until maybe money ran out to, I think, 2022, 2023.
Yeah.
But then I said, where is the paperwork? As chairman, I sent an email of accountability for the monies received and spent. And there's no money. And up to today, there is no record of whatever, Hippos Foundation or anything like that. And then for me, the bigger question that begs is, Manzi was chairman for how many years? He says 12, 13?
From 2013.
So
And with coming back breaks in between.
Yeah, so why is that question coming right now, at this moment? I mean, as chairman, he should have known what was happening, right? He should have put structures in place to ensure that whatever was happening, whether it is the foundation, whether it is the club, there was some form of understanding generally, or some form of accountability that was happening in terms of where is the money coming from, how much is it, where is that money going towards. But for me, I have that evidence. I have it on email in terms of what was spent on which player and how much, doing which course, and that ended. So it's for me, it's quite disturbing for someone to claim there's a Hippos Foundation and someone is siphoning money out of that. And maybe it really, at this point in time, it really helps me to reflect on what happened in the course of the season. Is someone fighting for money, or is it that someone is being targeted on claims that there's money coming in from a foundation and they don't have their hands on this money?
But couldn't you understand where it's coming from, being the person who founded this club, and monies are being collected or allegedly collected?
No, but where are those monies?
Yes.
Where are those
Those are
monies?
the questions directed to you.
Yeah. So the ideally for me, I've told you what I know about any money that was received or was out of that went into players, into the
So you're
tuition.
going directly into players.
Yes, and that ended. There is no documentation, there is no minute, there is nothing about a Hippos Foundation. So for me, it is non-existent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, back to the challenges of URU, NCS, and we wouldn't call them challenges, but the arbitration. I don't call it faction, but the side you subscribe to is accused of having frustrated these negotiation talks. You did not show up. You mentioned you're out of the country, but you sent your team, but you are not in the country.
First meeting,
Yes.
I was out of the country.
Yes.
I returned. Second meeting, I was there as chairman. Sat in front of 8 men. Should I mention the individuals who were there?
Go ahead. If you are
There was the general secretary.
Yes.
There was, of course, Mr. Yairo Kasasa.
Yes.
There was the CEO in that meeting. There was representatives from the Eastern Uganda Rugby Association, that is Duncan,
Yes.
and Coach Leo. There was, I think that particular meeting, there was no representative from National Council of Sports, but in the last meeting that been there. So we we discussed, like, what is the issue and all this. First and foremost, for me, what I took out of that meeting was that it was a meeting where someone's ego needed to be massaged. Someone asked me, do you declare in this meeting that Manzi is your boss? In that meeting. I said, no, he's not my boss. My bosses are the people who voted me into power.
Voted into power, yes.
And those are the ones that I'm accountable to. Then, of course, he said there was a lawyer, a club lawyer. I mean, I don't know if at all there has been a lawyer all this along, but there was someone who was sleeping throughout the entire meeting.
Yes.
And then when his view was sought, at some point woke up and said, but young man, you're wasting your time. Why don't you sit on a table and resolve this issue? And of course we said, this is something that is quite easy to resolve outside this meeting.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, now that I'm back, let's have another meeting. And that's when I had that meeting at Silver Springs,
the one-on-one.
So I meet with him. He says, now, the problem is this man. You know, you guys, if we were able to kick this man out, we'll enjoy this club. Like, okay, understood. I took back. And actually, for me, what I told him was that if you say you want all the clout and recognition that you're trustee, you're founder, and you're the owner, and you out of the loop of all the decision making that is happening within the club, I'll always send you a message every week, or we'll have a call and I'll tell you, this is what has happened, these are the boys that have trained, these are the injuries, these are the costs we've incurred, and these are the issues we're having. Now, the following week, I did that update. Even just a day after, he wrote to Union again. And he said, we failed to meet with these guys that are being adamant. It seems they're stealing my club. So, now, I wrote to the Union. All the emails are there. I told them, I've met with Manzi. These are the resolutions we agreed upon. And I'm committed to meeting our side of the bargain.
Yeah.
And also, I requested for Union. Now this was in April. I said we only have a month to the end of the league. This is going to cause confusion within the camp, within the team. Let's hold fire until the season closes. And I'm kindly requesting, let's call for an all stakeholders meeting. We bring players, we bring the current EXCOM, we bring Manzi, we bring members, we bring the Eastern Uganda Rugby Association. We bring everyone on board. We have a meeting. We talk about what the issues are. Because at that time, for me, what I took from those meetings was that an individual was being targeted all through. That's the only person they wanted out of the way. I'm like, no. For me, someone was voted into that office. I see someone's contribution. And for me, I cannot make that decision, kick someone off my EXCO.
Yes.
Simply because you say you're the founder and all these things are happening. You don't want them to be happening. But then, again, I thought it's coming just a few months when our EXCOM has just been, even before we even settled.
Yeah.
And these issues are coming. And I was like, if you knew these issues were happening, why didn't you try to resolve them at the time when you're still chairman of Jinja Hippos? Why? Why now? And of course, I understood why that was happening. But at the end of the day, now he writes, he says his stakeholders cannot wait. He needs a decision made there and then. So Union writes 2 letters through the General Secretary and says, we're reverting Hippos Rugby to the 2013 Constitution.
Yeah, now the 2013 Constitution. How impactful was that decision on you, and how did you receive it?
Now, immediately we called for a meeting. We said the 2013 Constitution is not binding for us as Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And 2, Union cited the Heathens case as a precedent
Okay.
and said, whatever has
Chalendo
happened.
Rugby
So,
Club, Chalendo Sports Club,
yes. And then they were reverted to the oldest constitution that was in place.
And how it brought issues.
But
Oh,
then
I
they
see what you
reverted them to the oldest constitution that
Yes.
the union had. Now, we told URU that you're comparing two incidents
yeah.
that are not exact. They're not the same, they don't match. There is involvement of properties, ownership, and rights
IP and
for heathens. For Jinja Hippos, it's someone saying, this is my club, I'm not being recognized, and I need a say. Right? So you cannot revert us to that constitution. At that point in time, people saying, can we revert? It's like, no. Let's write again to the union and engage them on this. There is evidence to that.
Yeah.
I'll share it with you.
Yes.
But then, after that, everything was cut off. So now there was a media frenzy. Jinja Hippos reverts to Hippos Rugby and the 2013 constitution.
That's when we tried to dive in your DMs to understand what was going on.
Yes. And immediately, we lost every single penny we had.
At that particular point. That was in April.
That was in April.
Yes.
Remember, that was at the peak of our season. We're
Peak
playing
of
so
the-
well.
Yes.
That was towards the Cobs game
Yeah.
in Jinja.
In Jinja, yes.
And I think, remember that result.
Yeah.
As painful as it was,
Yeah.
people's minds were not in it. Because we open to players, we tell them what is happening, that the biggest stakeholders. The moment a player says, I'm not playing, no rugby will happen. So I told them, this is what has happened, but I want you to play. And actually, players said, we don't want to play this game. We said, no, it's not sportsman-like. You need to play this game. I said, okay, we play. And then, if you'd remember what happened during that game through the players' leadership, Manzi mentioned on this podcast that team sent players to go and harass him. No. The evening before, Manzi...
That's the video you're talking about. We
that
posted.
video that you posted
Yes.
at the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
Manzi called me and said, now, the team is playing tomorrow. What are the preparations? I said, there's no money, but I'm committing my money and all that. Then I learn, because I stay in camp, but I learn that Friday I got to Jinja, and I learn the following day on Saturday. He spoke to a couple of players and he told them the ExCom doesn't want to give you money. The players know the truth. They know where the money is coming from,
Yeah.
who is providing these resources, and how. So he gets to Jinja and says, no, your chairman, I signed off the money. The chairman has your money. Now the players tell him, no, that is not club money. That is chairman's money. You say you're the owner of this club, Jinja Hippos. Give us our allowances that are due to us. And there's a gentleman who really helps with the get collections and all that. He had collected 600,000. So I told him, no. If Manzi is trying to cause all this thing, I remember maybe in that video, I don't appear,
Yeah.
but they sent one of the players to me and called me and said, I want to record you. Didn't I release money to you? Why are you not giving it to players? I said, that's not exactly how it is.
Yeah.
I volunteered to give the boys my money. That's a couple of millions of shillings for this game.
Yeah.
And now you're telling them the wrong things, that you released money and we're not giving them the money. So it's up to you. Give them, because they said they don't want my money. Give
Yeah.
them your money, because that's what they want. So anyway, the guy who had collected the money, I tell him, he says, even whoever is saying accountability, says, okay, I told him, please give the 600,000 to Manzi. It's not even covering half of the costs for the team. You have 40, 50 players, because we pay allowances for everyone who has come on that day.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who will get injured, and all that. So they're there. So players tell him off. Basically tell him, we don't know you, we've never signed contracts with you, you've never been there for any of us, we've had problems, we know the people who are there for us. This whole thing of you saying we're playing for you is not there. And I think that if you to think about what has been going around from players around
social media,
yeah. We Hippos, Jinja Hippos and all that.
Yeah.
It's because the contracts are with Jinja Hippos, first of all. Every single 2 weeks we have to give them allowances. We have to pay for them. We're paying for the coaches, we're paying for medical, we're paying for everything, right? So that whole video now, everything ends. I tell the players, okay, accept that money. We'll sort out everything after the game. Because for me as chairman, it's my role, and I've taken it upon me and my vice chair to have that team bonding afterwards. Because I know how I would sort anything else that Imagine said, leave him. Incidentally, there are journalists there who were capturing that moment, and that's how it went viral.
Oh, that's how it got viral.
Yes.
Well, players. Now, with the players, as we discussed earlier, very passionate, they have come of age. But their continued involvement in these management issues, not continued involvement. I only call it involvement, and I wouldn't want to attract any criticism to myself from the players. But from our end, looking in, it appears like the players are being forced to pick sides. What do you have to say about players' involvement in matters of politics or management of a club? Very much aware that players are the primary beneficiary, or they are the primary stakeholder as to why we even have a podcast. Is because of the players. So
good. So I take you back to the composition of Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club. All players are members of the club. That means their voices need to be heard, first of all. But secondly, all the voices that you've heard are from the players' leadership, not any other single player.
Yes.
Out of the 53 registered players of Jinja Hippos,
I think it's Isaac, Aziz, and Fahad who have been vocal about it.
Are those not leaders?
Okay.
They are.
Argument, yes.
Fahad was captain last season. Aziz is our sevens captain. Rujus was our assistant captain. Right? So they speak from a place of knowledge and understanding of how far the club has come, who has supported them, and they speak on behalf of the other players. But also, in terms of speaking about or if them engaging in politics, it's, for me, I come from a place of human rights. It's their right to speak up. It might not be right in rugby circles. We've seen precedents where players have been banned for...
I know, it's quite,
But then it's off-season for them.
Yeah.
And they have that right to express themselves. But also as management, I don't think you've seen that in the last, apart from Regis who went to Australia.
Yes.
And will not play for us next season unless otherwise. So he's going to do his rugby there. But apart from that, I don't think you've had any other social media qualms coming through. And we've spoken to these players. And I think from our camp, it's quite surprising. We haven't been as vocal, right? We've not appeared anywhere talk about, Jinja Hippos and things, because we know what it really takes for the club to be run, and we understand the interest of the club, and the players. So for them, I think they've calmed down, they understood, and to be honest with you, they understand that they have our backing as the current ExCom. We're supporting them every single day, and they know they will play next season, they'll participate in all tournaments. And actually I was worried when someone talked about Kampala International Sevens and how Hippos didn't participate because of these wrangles. And I'm like, who has been around rugby for a long time and they don't understand? You've just gone through a final 10 days after. I think, Edwin, in the top 6 or 8 teams, we had the smallest squad.
Okay.
Yeah. Our players had just been through a grueling season. It was their time off. No training, nothing. They needed to enjoy the Nile special, enjoy their time off. No rugby, no training, nothing. 10 days after the season, and then you're calling them for training and you want them to be part of. Next year maybe Faro it's there. We'll prepare better, but
I see where you're going
Yes.
with this, but
yeah, we needed the players to rest.
Pirates had a feeder side that
Yeah,
played that.
and
None of
Cobbs
their
as well.
players
Yeah.
as Cobbs as
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
And
I
we had the
kind of
smallest.
see-
We had the
I
smallest
see
squad.
what you mean. Yeah, makes sense.
So players were still injured. They
Yeah.
needed that rest. So I had to make
So
that
it wasn't
call.
management
No,
issues related.
it wasn't
or
a
the
management
fights?
issue. I know Manzi wanted boys to play. We said, no, you're not going to play. You're not training, not anything. We actually put punitive action in place. We need your welfare in place. There is a very young and talented boy who got a concussion. He just recently
Cleared
returned.
the protocols.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we understand these are still young boys. They have so many years of rugby ahead of them. They need to have their rest.
Manzi made reference to players training, and you also said that you're preparing your boys to go and participate in the Gorilla Sevens. So tell us about that.
Yeah, the team is ready. Even our poster should be up right now.
Yes.
Confirm our participation. So the boys are there. We paid the allowances for end of month today.
Yeah.
They're going. We've got transport for them. Everything is approved, and they're going to have a good time. Last year they were able to go into Bunyonyi for a good ride.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To be honest,
we
they're going. And
we look-
let me tell you, maybe there is a Hippos side that
Yeah.
Manzi is talking about that is going to the Gorilla 7. That's okay.
Yeah.
If they're training, that's fine. And for us, the core of the squad is there. All the players that are registered
We'll play.
under Jinja Hippos and that have contracts under Jinja Hippos are going to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there was a meeting you guys had. You put out a post where denouncing Manzi's ex-com that had been appointed pursuant to his powers as trustee.
Yes.
And then you denounced that publicly. You put on his post as fake.
Yeah.
You had a meeting as Hippos, Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club.
Yes.
And then you subsequently announced court action to go ahead. Just take us through that.
So, what the norm has been, there's been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
And you can't sit in your sitting room or living room and say, I've appointed so and so and so and so and so and so to be part of the EXCOM. That in itself demeans and undermines the whole spirit of why we have governance structures.
Yeah.
For me, everything that has happened in terms of social media, all the communications have been through my office as chairman.
Yeah.
And I'll put my head on the table for that to be chopped.
Yeah.
It's not team, it's not anyone else. We have to agree there's collective action as a team, as the EXCOM. So when Manzi announced, a new EXCOM, we're like, that's fine. And they categorically said that's for Hippos Rugby. And that was okay. The only problem was saying my EXCOM was no longer taking care of business at Jinja Hippos. So that in itself was wrong.
Yeah.
Without consultation from the members, without involving players or any other person who had a stake in Jinja Hippos Rugby.
Yeah.
So we marked that as fake.
Yeah.
We put it on our social media handles and we stand by that. 2, we called for a special general meeting on the 14th of last month. So basically to provide an update and seek members' views of what next. And now that this is there, and everyone is, by the way, standing, they're aloof, they're watching on to see what is next, what is going to happen. Everyone. We had 3 sponsorships on the table at the end of the season. By the last game, that game against Pirates, I had sponsors in my palm like this. All we had to do was keep whatever was happening, everything running smoothly. We're putting structures in place. I mean, I was, 4 months, 5 months in the office.
In the office, yes.
And we're trying to make sure things are moving smoothly, we're commercially viable, we're playing the best rugby, we're attracting better and new talent and all that. And then this thing, so we called for a members meeting on the 14th of June, provide them an update and ask them, what do we do now? This has happened. So of course, everyone said, to hell with Manzi's pronouncements, because they knew the reason behind that. So also provided them with an update on the engagements with the National Council of Sports and URU and other stakeholders, and they said that's fine. And we presented options, and those options I spoke about them in the last space. But the last one that you speak about is the court or the legal action.
Yeah.
So I think it's been taken in the literal sense, but we needed legal support as a team. Get a lawyer who understands the dynamics of the law and sports generally. So that's the person we brought on board to advise. And in terms of next steps, we'll see. But like we've discussed much earlier, I think the best way forward is to come together. Jinja Hippos is a big entity.
Yeah.
First of all, we need to dialogue. We need to stay as a unit and not saying, I've appointed an ExCom. If you want to work with me, come and work under this ExCom. We all know the individuals on that ExCom.
Yeah.
None has the heart for rugby.
Yes.
At the least, not even solve 0.1% of the problems we deal with every single day. So it's about coming together and understanding that rugby has moved on, Jinja has moved on, and all these squabbles around, this is my club, I'm the founder, this. It doesn't help at the end of the day, because rugby should win every single day. That's what I tell people.
That's why the podcast is in place, rugby, because of rugby. So obviously you've touched the future in respect to this, but anything that can be done to revive this mighty club?
It's not about reviving. The club is there, Jinja Hippos is there. We're out to win. And whatever is happening now will be resolved, whichever way, the easy or the hard way.
I think hopefully with time, once things are resolved, we'll move from it being the scramble for power to the line out of power. Just highlighting that Jinja is now in the great strides of the line out and going forward as they should. But Joshua, any last words?
Well, thank you for hosting me first and foremost, but also for the great work that you're doing. And to the partners, to the members, to the players, all stakeholders of Jinja Hippos. Your support is needed and it is appreciated. But also for everyone in terms of my ExCom, you need to stay strong. Whatever is happening will end. And be rest assured that the team is intact. The team will play next season. The team will play the sevens. And everyone within the club has our support 100%.
All right, thank you very much. You've heard it from Joshua Wakabi, the chairman of the Jinja Hippos Rugby Football Club. As we continue with anniversary week of Fat Cats Podcast, do get your merchandise. As you can see, I'm putting on a nice shirt made by Quera Sports for us, but we also have our merchandise. As you see, the fancy bucket hat, do get those. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you very much.